Welcome to Talent Takeover
Unfiltered.
When it comes to working hard and keeping it real, we know our shit. Self-care, happiness, inner peace, and time. I'm Brianna Rooney, and this is Taylor Bradley.
Hey, y'all.
And we have thrived in chaos and turned it into an art form. So Taylor, what are we doing here today?
We're here to give you a raw, under-the-hood view of all things recruiting and finally give credit where credit is due to a long underrated industry that's full of quote-unquote experts.
All right. Well, then let's take this show to the road. Hello. Welcome to Talent Takeover Unfiltered. We are coming into you hot today. Woo! Why do we always shimmy? Hey, Taylor, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? Well, I think it's because we're always so happy to record these.
That is true. Yeah. So for the audience, we record essentially once a month about. And so we have, some goodies in there and that's all fun. So yeah, it is super, super pump up. And as we're doing all this body language, remember you can watch us on the YouTube channel, Millionaire Recruiter YouTube channel, and you can see our body language because that is what it is about today is body language during a video call and how to interpret it. So let's go. Let's dig.
All right. So getting right into number one, I feel like this is just kind of goes without saying. You got to have your camera on or having your camera on and turning it off. Like you can't do that. I mean, in the world that we live in now where there's less in-person meetings, everyone is required to be on camera, even if you look like shit.
150%. And just let's step back for a second. The reason why we wanted to do this video is one, because you have to learn how to sell yourself in video. You have to get used to having the candidate calls over video, even though, it's fine to pick up the phone, right? But hiring manager syncs, team meetings, there's so much shit that goes on with video. And I know that it's like, that's the only way we can really build communication, build relationship, build rapport. So this is why we're taking that step back. But oh my God, it drives me absolutely bonkers when I'm on camera. I showed up today and they're not on camera. And again, everyone has their own shit. Some people are like, hey, my house is messy. Some people have their kids in the background on their laps. I get it. But it's like maybe a quick little let's do a little heads up. Hey, no video today. Cool. No big deal.
Okay. So you brought up something interesting that I don't even think is on our list, but kids in the lap. So what is your thought process on that? Is it something that you're like for, against, or is it something you have kind of guidelines around like, this is when it's appropriate to do that. Here's when it's not.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm biased because I'm a mom, right? So I think I have more empathy for stuff like this, but so I have a relationship with one of our clients and she's very rarely, she's always like very professional. And one time she happened to have her baby on her lap. No big deal. Didn't bother me. Hi, cutie, whatever. We're just kind of bonding a little bit more. And then that was it. There was really no other distraction. But I will say, when I got interviewed for my woman-owned certification, I was like, they made it be this really big deal. I was really nervous. I was like, okay, I have to get this certification. I have to stand strong as a woman, like all these things, right?
Right.
And this person who I have never met before, I had no relationship with, had her baby on and also had one of those little fuzzy background things. So every now and again, her baby's head would pop in and out. It was insanely distracting. And I didn't know what to do. Again, I had no relationship with this person. And it wasn't one of those bonding moments. It was it felt a little disrespectful because to me, this call meant a lot. And I didn't really understand and I wasn't given a heads up. So I go back and forth. What do you think?
So you do think there's a time and a place?
I do. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. I think if it's somebody that you're really comfortable with, like the client example you gave, if it's us internally, we all understand, like you said, most of us are mothers and so we get it. But I definitely do think there's a time and a place. Like, I think if you're showing up more often than not with kids climbing all over you, and again, this is coming from someone who has kids, it is really distracting. Or if they're talking, or you can tell that, because there's literally no way somebody can be paying full attention or completely focused on the topic at hand if you've got, little bodies crawling all over you. Like, we've all been there. So I definitely, and pulling your top off and needing this and needing a snack and all that. I really just think that there's a time and a place. And that's why despite having worked from home for all the years that I have, even pre-COVID, I've had my kids in school or daycare because I just know that I can't be fully focused on what I'm doing if there's kids on me and I've got to I've got to do both jobs because being a mom is a job, right? So like, and being a full-time stay-at-home mom is a job. And that's kind of what I associate that with. When the kids are at home, you're doing 2 jobs in a day. And that's really hard to balance. So it just doesn't personally work for me because I won't deliver my best work if I've got to be mom and an employee. Now there are exceptions
100%.
if kids are sick, but
of course. I was going to say, like, God, I hate when I'm at home when the kids are sick. I'm like, oh, hello, 1 second. 100%. There's exceptions. Now I'm going to get controversial. What about pets?
Being at home with you in the camera. Is that what you're talking about? Being up in the camera?
Being all up in the camera.
I think there's a time and the place. Like we have, historically, I have had team meetings where it was like, show your pet, and this is at like my previous employer. And so it was like everybody, has their pet. It was kind of just like the theme of that meeting. But that's really the only time I can say that I've ever had my dog in there and like, climbing up on me and stuff. Cause it doesn't matter what it is, a dog, a fucking iguana, a parrot, a kid. If it's climbing on you, I'm going to just be focused on that. You know what I mean? So I think it really, to your point, like, doesn't matter if it's distracting.
I think the same thing, because whatever is taking you out of the present, whether it's a person behind the scenes or the one watching you, it's like, it's just distracting.
Yeah. Well, and turn your camera off. I don't know. I think it's really easy to just click that button and turn your camera off really quickly. Like we all do when we're in back-to-back meetings and we want to choose something because we're eating a lunch or something like that. Just turn it off really quick, pop back on. But I look at it like anything, no matter what it is, no matter what creature it is. And yes, I'm talking about my kids when I say creatures, but it doesn't matter what it is. They're the best. Oh, the best. But it still doesn't. I mean, they're still climbing all over me like the dog would do, So, okay. All right. Going into number 2, head tilts are a signal of engagement, while a head pullback is a sign of disengagement. So as I was going through and reading about all these, I was like, I'm envisioning what that looks like, right? So like when I'm talking, I'm like, I do that when I'm really engaged in what somebody's saying. I'm like that. I'll tilt my head and like kind of lean in. And whenever I'm really disengaged or somebody's driving me nuts, and well, I wouldn't go to that example because that would actually be too inappropriate. But yeah, I'll kind of sit back like this. And so without even completely unintentional, so I think some of this stuff is really interesting with regards to body language, because it's like, oh, we really do those things.
Yeah. So I'm going to push back on this just because I'm thinking about a few different instances for myself. And God, sitting in a chair for me all day long, even though I've done it for 15 years, is still really difficult. And I know, I coach a lot. Yeah. And so coaching and not being able to get off of my desk is for like 3 hours. So and then I get excited about different things. And then I have to like, go like this with my chair and like pop myself back up and be like, okay. Yeah. And sometimes when I pop myself back up, it's either an adjustment of my energy or it's an adjustment of just like, oh my God, my back is fucking killing me. Like, what am I doing? It's like, I got to go like this. I fidget a lot. So I have to do I do this weird thing with my wrist, and everyone's always like, oh, is that a nervous tick? I'm like, no, I don't know. It just feels good. I don't fucking know what it is.
Well, no, I don't. I mean, I'm like envisioning this too. I think we all do it. I've seen you do it on calls. I've seen you do it on calls where it's like this. And I do think it's exactly but that's what I would interpret that as, is like you're sitting in a chair all day and you're just readjusting. I don't think that that's like a negative. I think if somebody's like up here like this and seems engaged, and then at some point in the conversation, they're like this, I think
okay. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of standoffish. Okay. So head ducks are a sign of extreme discomfort. And what we mean by head ducks is like, if someone were to yell, look out, and everybody goes like that, so like head ducks, like.
Who does this in meetings? Have you seen that?
I wouldn't say in meetings. I would say in interviews when somebody's really nervous, like, like just kind of a sinking down thing.
Okay.
So I don't associate it as much with like the head as like the whole body just kind of like sinking down a little bit. I think it's an energy thing
small. Too. It's like the confidence is small. Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
You're shrinking into yourself.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Okay. So wait, okay. Let me ask you a question. When you see someone doing that do you acknowledge it? Not saying like, hey, why are you ducking down? But do you like try to make them feel better? Does empathy supposed to come through? Like, what's the other person supposed to do?
I think you have to pick up on the body language, hence why we're having this whole podcast episode. And I think it's your job, or I look at it like it's my job as the interviewer to make them the most comfortable they can possibly be so that I can have the best outcome of the interview. So if you see somebody shrinking into themselves or kind of like, it's your job to fix the energy. Like you were saying, you do this to shift your energy. I think it's our job to shift the energy and put them at ease. And I think you're a people person, you're a recruiter. Like you can figure out how to do that. I think it depends on the person, the approach that you take. But, I always start the interview by shooting the shit with the person and really trying to set the scene there and getting them truly, truly comfortable. Everybody knows that interviews are really nerve-wracking, right? So I think whatever the interviewer can do to put the interviewee at ease, they should.
Okay. So what if you're having a sales call and, you're running the show, right? And then the other person on the other side, like the client, is kind of shrinking down, because I mean, that happens. Like there's so many different people that still don't have confidence no matter what the conversation is.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call out the behavior, but it would be telling to me of like, they're not confident probably in what they're talking about. Like there's more to it. There's something's going on there. If they're like this and they're normal and they're talking, and then when we get to a certain subject or a certain part of the process or what hasn't worked or something that they may feel ashamed of or a little bit self-conscious about, or just lacking confidence with, like if they start to shrink down, I would notice that. If somebody starts this way and then by the end of it, like I can see their fucking eyes and that's it. Like Groundhog Day, keeping up, and they just slowly shrink down. Something's going on there. But I think again, it's body language. Like it tells me that person is probably is self-conscious about whatever we're talking about or uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What about you? Would you call it out with a client?
No, I wouldn't call it out. I guess I'm just thinking about on like putting my sales hat on, like, would I be excited about this client? Like, ooh, now, they're really going to like listen to me and take my expertise because, like we talked about, like, bad business, right? Like that.
Yeah.
We talk all about that. If you have not listened to or watched that episode, please do that. But like I'm thinking, is that a client that I want? Probably, because if they're lacking confidence in this certain area, this is where I can shine, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also, if you've seen a really confident person thus far up into in the conversation, and then you get to a certain subject and they kind of shrink down from a client perspective, then it's also like humanizes them to me, in my opinion. It would make me like them more. It'd be like, okay, there's an area of, unless they're sitting there being really arrogant while the body language tells you another thing. But I haven't really noticed that happen too many times with clients. Like I've noticed it more in interviews than anything in any kind of call I would ever have, because obviously I think those are like the most stressful calls.
Yeah,
you are
anxiety
being
filled.
You are, you are having to prove yourself. Like you can fuck it up so bad that you do lose your opportunity or spot or chance or whatever it is. So it is kind of one of those things that like, whereas a client call, if they shrink down, like they don't have anything on the line, like they're not risking anything. They're not losing anything by their body behavior shrinking down. Whereas like in an interview, you're being judged on that. So, okay.
True.
So this is an obvious one. Head held high exudes confidence. Feelings of high confidence usually unconsciously pulls your head up. Feelings of low confidence lower it. And I think it's so true. I think all the times that we don't even think about it, but it's like, oh, okay. Like your posture gets better. Everything gets better when you're like, oh, I can speak about this. I know this shit. But then when it's something you don't know or you have to think about, again, shrinking down in yourself. And I can't wait to get to my broke to boss tip because it's going to touch on what you said earlier about you fidgeting. I think that's really, really important that we address that at some point, because I do think some of these things are like, okay, this is just what it is. If somebody shrinks down, if their head gets really low, it's obvious that they're kind of self-conscious about something. If their head's held high, they're proud of it. They've got their confidence. But then that's the gray area, the fidgeting. So we'll talk about that here. Okay. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, with my SHRM speech, it was like, do I go out on stage with a fidgety thing or do I not? Obviously like, no, right? But it's like, do I just embrace? Should I have it embraced and told the crowd, hey, I'm a fidgeter. Like I'm a born fidgeter. Like, I don't know what to tell you all. When those fidgeters came around, like I was like, this is gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny. Okay. I'll let that one go. All right. Let's, well, here.
And then it's got a popper thing too. Yeah. Okay. So with regards to SHRM, what are you going to do?
You mean, what did I do? Hold on one second. So Kate, we're going to just back that up. Cause remember, this is airing after SHRM.
Oh, yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
did
Okay,
you
okay.
do?
So, let's start again.
Yeah. So with regards to Sherm and the fidget spinner, what did you do?
I did not bring it on stage with me as much as I wanted to, because then I was thinking, is this my like security blanket? And then if I bring it on once, because, now that like I got a taste of speaking and it went well, and I got to, I looked at it from a different lens, and it was just me training people. It's something that I love to do.
Yeah.
It's the podcast, it's the
Yeah.
YouTubes, it's all that shit. It's no different. It's just there's, 400 people in front of you. That's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't want to start that because I didn't want it to always be like a crutch. I wanted to
Ooh.
make sure that it was something I could just do and chillax. But trust me, I wanted it. I was playing with, with like my pants a little bit. But it just is what
Hyping
it
them
is.
up.
I do like weird things with my, do weird things with my fingers. I'm double
I do
jointed,
too.
so it's like really like I do weird shit. But yeah.
I do too. So so now are you going with that in mind? And obviously you're going to continue to do more speaking engagements. Are you going to start practicing having your video calls without anything like that?
Ah, shit. Maybe.
If you don't
I
want
don't
the
know.
security blanket, you got to throw that fucker out.
God.
But
I
I
love
also, on the
fidgeting.
flip side of that, I'm a fan of like, I would not judge somebody for having their thing, but I think that's because I have my things. Like I mess with my fingers, I'll file my finger down.
Yeah.
I'm fully listening, but it's my fidget that I have where I wouldn't judge somebody if they went on stage and we're just talking and, it wouldn't bother me. I'm sure that there's a bunch of professional speakers that would be like, oh my God, shut the fuck up, Taylor. You have no idea what you're talking about, but I wouldn't judge.
Actually, so Matthew McConaughey, you know how he just did the Art of Living, and it was like
Right.
that big live event. It was really awesome. So he had a rubber band on his wrist and says like, hey, you're just going to see me do this. This just keeps me in it. This just keeps me thinking, because like I'll go on tangents and stuff. And I really related to it because, as we all know, I go on tangents,
Yeah.
and so it kind of just keeps you like focused, present.
That's from a movie.
It is?
A Mark Wahlberg movie. Yeah. So he's like the CIA agent. I'll have to send it to you. It's actually a really good movie, but he like does that. He has a rubber band and keeps popping himself to like stay focused, but it's something that he learned as a kid. And we could talk about that later, but like, it's a really good, I think I say it's from a movie. I think it's like a known thing that people do out there, but I first saw that in a movie probably, 10 years ago.
Well, I pondered doing that. I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. Anyways, yeah. So, but I don't know. That's all interesting. So that's a good question. Don't have the answer to that yet, as I've already now grabbed my fidgeter.
Oh, we shall see. To be determined, everybody. All right. So, number 5, head nods send different messages depending on their speed. When someone nods slowly, it usually indicates an ongoing interest in whoever is speaking. Fast nodding signals impatience with the speaker or the listener's desire to get a turn to speak. What are your thoughts on that one?
Okay, that's it. So I'm for sure a nodder, like as you guys are all watching this, because by the way, thanks so much. I have to just take a little moment. Our YouTube podcast on the YouTube is like, the views are going up like a lot. Comments are going up. So thank you guys. That keeps us going.
Thank you. Yeah.
But I am such a nodder. But I'm like engrossed in the conversation. But I will say, I don't think I'm a fast, like because I do get impatient when I'm listening, because I also get excited. So I think there's like both of those things. But I go like this, there's been times where I put my hand on my mouth because I'm like about to speak, and I'm like, Brianna, it's not your turn. Or like, I'll go like this. Like, so I definitely do things as like, cause I'm trying to talk, but I'm not like this. Yeah. Feels like a duck.
I think like that's one that I feel like we all do subconsciously without even knowing it. That when you're really think about a conversation with your friends, anything, when you're sitting down, you're listening and you're really captivated by what they're saying and you don't want to interrupt them. You're like, yeah, like I don't think we go like that, but I find myself, I'm like, and I also think on the flip side of that, when you're pitching to a client or you're in an interview and you see the interviewer nodding with what you're saying, smiling, like it's very encouraging. So I think that's when we go back to what, as the interviewer, things that you could do to really set the scene or help pull somebody up. It's like, oh, that's great. It's your tone. It's tell me more about that. That's really interesting. And smiling and re-engaging them in the conversation. Because I do think it's really easy when you're interviewing to get in your head. It's easy when you're on these sales calls to get in your head and then completely just fuck it up. But I think if you've got somebody on the other side of it encouraging you, even though they're interviewing you, or I mean, even a sales call, technically it's an interview, So they're interviewing
Oh, for
you
sure.
and
Yeah.
the product or whatever. So, yeah. So it's like, I still think if they do something to bring it back, I know that I always approach it the way that I would want to be handled in those situations, which is encourage me, because I can bring it back. But if you make me feel like shit about it, then what are you going to do? Just sink further and further down, or get more and more in your head or whatever.
That's a really good point. I get so excited when I see people nodding as I talk, because I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm just hitting it. And who knows? It's like maybe that's just like their thing. But it pumps me up. I love it. I love the head nods.
I love head nods too. And then fast ones, like I can honestly say, even when I've done fast head nods, I'm thinking about a scenario, because I really try to think about all of these. I was kind of doing them as I'm going through it like a fucking idiot over here. I'm like, do it fast, slow, turn. What does all this mean? But yeah, I'm like, if I've looked at another screen, like when we're on with our marketing company or something, and I'm looking in their platform and they're talking, I'm like, I feel like that's the only time I really do like a fast head nod, is like when I'm looking at something and they're like, oh, do you see it? Oh yeah, I see it. But when somebody's talking and I'm trying, like a confirmation.
Like acknowledging. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah. Right. But the slow head nod, like you said, it energizes me. It makes me feel better about whoever the audience is I'm talking to. It's like, okay, they're really getting it. I'm really flowing with this. So I think a slow head nod, smile while you're talking is like very encouraging. Yeah. And on both sides, even if you're being interviewed, nod your head, smile,
it's engaging.
Be engaging. Yeah. Nobody wants to sit there with Debbie Downer like this. Just no. You see, I even did a lean like.
Well, what's funny is, as I was just about to talk about my lean, I lean like now that you're talking about all this body language and we're thinking about this, I realize like I'm constantly kind of like this. Like I'm just like, just chill. But I also think it matters on who you're talking to. Like now I got to readjust myself, because like with you and I, it's like, it's just chill as fuck. Like this is just another day. We're having a cool podcast conversation. And I notice with when I'm talking with the team or just having a chill team meeting, I put up my leg a lot, because it's like, I don't have to be on.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes like most of I would say at least half of the day, I have to be on. Like I got to make sure I mind my P's and Q's. I'm always doing it. My energy is high. I'm talking a lot. But then there's those other meetings where it's like, God, fuck, thank God. Let's just shoot the shit. Yeah. How's everybody doing?
Yeah. And your whole body kind of relaxes.
Yeah.
And you're just like yeah. And so I completely agree with you. Like we're saying all these things. And again, it's read the room, right? Know who you're talking to, know, because I think in our team meetings, and like you said, when we're just chill as fuck, I'll lean back. I'll do things like that doesn't mean I'm disengaged, but I'm just really comfortable with these people, with this conversation or whatever.
Right.
So I think, to your point, there's a time and a place when you have to be on and this body language all means something. And then there's a time and a place when you can just truly relax, and then you can throw all these rules out the door. But if you have to be with the audience that knows that the way that you're showing up is because you're really relaxed. I think that's the key point. Like you sitting back like this, you fidgeting, you doing fucking high kicks or the V or whatever you want to do with your legs, scratch your balls, whatever. I wouldn't care, because I know that it's not a reflection of our conversation. You're just chilling. You're at ease. And I think, again, it's the person on the receiving end has to know that. Otherwise, it could be deemed disrespectful.
Yeah, for sure. And I love talking about body language, because not only is it interpreting the other person so you can show up, but it's really like, hey, I might not be confident in whatever I'm doing right now, but I now know that I got to stand tall. I got to have the head up here. I didn't want to be engaging. So this is really, I think, great, just beneficial sales tools, communication tools. Like, how do you show up? I love that. Even if you're having a really fucking bad day, because we talk about triggers, we talk about bad days, we talk about how do we come up with and have the best versions of ourselves when you show up. And if you show up in this body language manner, it doesn't matter what the hell's going on behind the scenes, because to the other person, you showed up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then we'll get to number 6. So you said this earlier with regards to yourself. So facial touching is a pacifier. So it keeps you from talking. But for other people, it could be that you're under stress and you self-soothe in a variety of ways. So it could be hair twirling, stroking your beard, touching your chin or your forehead. Yeah, I know. I was like, But I was thinking about that.
Everyone with a beard does this, first of all. Let's just get that out of the way. Like, I'm always watching people with the beards like this.
But it's nervous energy. It's to soothe. It's like, I feel that. Like, we've even had people on the podcast that have a beard and they do this. True. And I notice it's when they're talking about something that they're in deep thought or maybe they're passionate about. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're lacking confidence in that area. So when I say it's a pacifier, it doesn't always have to be under stress. stress. It could be just like, okay, I'm deep in thought. And like, I touch my chin a lot. And I think it's like what you're saying, you get sick of sitting here all day like that.
Yeah.
And so
I
I'm
will
like
say,
this.
I have noticed that when I was stressed, back and forth throughout the months, right? I noticed myself getting kind of like yuckies right here, like little pimples or something, because I would constantly touch this. And I'm like, Brianna, stop it. This is like, I'm touching yourself. Although I always felt like hair thing was like, flirty, but I definitely see that this could be, nervous energy.
Yeah, no, I was reading something specifically about hair twirling, and it was like this. It was, and I went on to a different article, but when I was putting all the research together, it was like hair twirling. You do not want somebody that's going to twirl their hair in front of your clients. Like that's a hard no. So you can't have them go sit down and deliver a QBR or sit down with executives and be, twirling their hair. And I was like, okay, interesting.
Fair.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which you're like being flirty. You're like over here thinking.
Yeah, I was like unless you're trying to flirt to get the deal.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting because I'm with you. Like I do this. I was getting a lot of pimples from going like this on my desk, just sitting there like that. And I was like, oh no, I'm getting, like you said, yuckies. Never heard call that yuckies down there. But it doesn't mean I'm stressed out or anything. I'm just like, I'm sitting at this desk all day holding this big ass head up. And I'm just like, I'll sit for a second. Actually I have a really tiny head. That's a fun fact for everybody. I'm really tall, but I have a tiny head.
I was going to get into that. I was like, oh, I don't feel like you have a big head.
No, my husband has a big ass head though. It's like a known thing. We talk about it, like his size hats and stuff. Like he has a big head. My son does. Yeah. Yeah. Well, as a result,
like a giant head.
My son does too, because, like father, like son. But I think it's absolutely hilarious. It's a joke in our family, so nobody's offended by it. Okay. Pause right here for a second.
Well, so you need to do your broke to boss tip though, right? Because there are 2 episodes.
I didn't come up with 2. I didn't even think about that.
That's okay. We'll think of the other one at the end.
Okay, so sorry, Jess, you're gonna have to edit a lot right here. But so the broke to boss tip.
I like it a lot. I watched it last night. Sorry.
Well, everybody else is watching Vanderpump. You're watching that, which is fucking hilarious. Okay, so the broke to boss tip is we're all naturally able to pick up on nonverbal cues, though often useful nonverbal cues can be misleading. So the real tip is people behave and express themselves as a response to specific situations, especially stressful ones like job interviews. They don't necessarily act that same way all the time. So I think that goes back to like what I was saying with the fidgeting. It goes back to, whenever I'm with you in person and stuff, you're not just like sitting here like this, just, you're not like that all the time. Yeah. And so it's like kind of basically this broke to boss tip is, if you're interviewing somebody and they're fidgeting or they're whatever, or they're doing like what you and I do, like I go like this, it's take it with a grain of salt. That's not how they are all the time, but understand that they're in a stressful situation where they're put on the spot. It's either a sales call, an interview, but give people grace and understanding that how they show up in their most nervous and stressful time isn't a reflection of what type of employee they're going to be or, partner or client or whatever. It's a stressful moment for them and people have different coping mechanisms.
Okay. So, but is there a time where it's like, look, this just happens all the time? Like now, every time you're presenting to a client, I've seen it happen. Or like, is there like, how do you address that? Or is that just go straight to it?
Well, I think it depends on is it distracting stuff? Like what you and I do with our fingers. Think about if we're sitting like this on a client call. Yeah. Does a client know? They have no clue what we're doing, but it's soothing us, right? But they have no clue. Yeah. So it's like, but if you do happen to see it, if you are a client or, interviewer, whatever, if you do happen to see somebody have some nervous energy or even, like stutter over their words or whatever, like understand that may not be how they are all the time. Interviews are just one of the most stressful situations a person could be in. So I think it's, again, the broke to boss tip is like, take that with a grain of salt, that people behave and express themselves in response to specific situations, but it doesn't mean that's how they are all the time.
Nice. Love it. Be empathetic. Stop being assholes.
Yeah.
Let's just sum that up.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody has their shit. Stop it, And so that's again, I like to give everybody grace with that because interviews or talking to somebody or role plays or whatever, it's very, very stressful.
Role plays. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Millionaire Recruiter program, I am constantly role playing with them. I don't ever give them a heads up. I barely give them a heads up as to what's going on because we just want to make sure they're always uncomfortable. And the other day, or just yesterday, they were like, Jesus, like I wasn't prepared for this. It's always like, I wasn't prepared for this. Yeah, no shit. You don't know what the client's going to say. you got to be prepared for the unexpected at any given moment.
Absolutely. And in those situations, you 1,000% do. But again, I think if somebody's down there like doing this and you have no clue, you know, like you and I do things that we mess with our hands. And maybe that also has become like our coping mechanism is doing things specifically with our hands versus hair or something like that. Like,
so they can't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
like
and I don't know. I've been doing this for as long as I can remember. So I can't remember, did it evolve? Was it something else and then it evolved into this and I channeled it differently so that nobody could see, you know, what is it? I think that stuff's really interesting too, to like really, if somebody's able to dissect that down, did you shift and start clicking your pen or grabbing your fidget spinner? Or have you always been this way?
Oh, I mean, I've always been a fidgeter, but yeah. Huh. Interesting. Well, I love it. So listeners, by the way, there's a lot more goodies here. We're actually going to make this 2 parts because we realized body language is a really big deal, whether or not it's you're on the other side or you're the one showing up and you have to fake it till you make it. So we're going to do this in 2 parts. So we'll see you on the next time, but thanks for this. And before we record, actually, no, never mind. I'm going to take that back. Sorry, Jess, I'm really fucking up today. I was going to say do comments, but we just told them that we do this every month. So let me take a step back. Okay.
Thanks, y'all.
So thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will see you next week with part 2 of body language.
Thanks, y'all.